Committee will come to order. This hearing is fully virtual, so we need to address a few housekeeping matters. First, for today's meeting, the chair or staff designated by the chair may mute participants' microphones when they are not under recognition for the purposes of eliminating inadvertent background noise. Second, members are responsible for muting and unmuting themselves. If I notice when you are recognized that you have not unmuted yourself, I will ask you if you would like the staff to unmute you. If you indicate approval by nodding, staff will unmute your microphone. Third, you will notice a clock on your screen that will show how much of the 5-minute clock is remaining. If there is a technology issue, we will move to the next member until the issue is resolved, and you will retain the balance of your time. Fourth, we will be beginning with the chair and ranking member. Then members present at the time the hearing is called to order will be recognized in order of seniority. Finally, the House rules require me to remind you that we have set up an email address to which members can send anything they wish to submit in writing at any of our hearings. That email address has been provided in advance to your staff. So let's begin. Today we have Ms. Jane Sargis, the Executive Director of the Open World Leadership Center. Ms. Sargis, thank you for being here today to discuss the budget request for the Open World Leadership Center. I also understand that you are also requesting to be called the Congressional Office for International Leadership, and that this name change is intended to reflect the mission and the congressional affiliation of the agency more accurately. This year, you are requesting $6 million in fiscal year 2022. This is the same as the fiscal year of 2021 funding. Although the budget for your organization is small as compared to the rest of our legislative branch agencies, it has had a real impact in increasing understanding of and appreciation for United States democratic values and democratic institutions in an area of the world where Russia's malign influence stands firmly opposed to our democratic principles and national security interests. Your small but influential organization does this by facilitating visits to the United States on a geographically and professionally broad cross-section of emerging leaders from Armenia, Azerbaijan, Belarus, Estonia, Georgia, Kazakhstan, Kosovo, Kyrgyzstan, Moldova, Mongolia, North Macedonia, Russia, Serbia, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, Ukraine, Uzbekistan, who might not otherwise have the opportunity to visit the United States. And I think that was an opportunity for my staff to try to get me to screw up one of the country's names. They tried but failed miserably. I understand the center continues to use the strength and expertise of local volunteer organizations and cost sharing and grant proposals to maximize savings. This is a benefit to the taxpayer, visiting countries, and local communities, a win-win for everyone involved. International exchange programs are a proven and cost-effective way for the United States to remain internationally competitive, develop leaders friendly to our American interests, and promote American values worldwide. These programs support global engagement that is critical to our prosperity and national security. We are thankful for your leadership of the center, its staff, and the many volunteers across the United States who've worked hard to ensure the success of Open World, or the Congressional Office for International Leadership. And I like the new name. I look forward to your testimony today and working with you to continue building global relationships. At this point, I would like to yield to my friend and colleague from the Great Northwest, Ranking Member Jamie Herrera Butler, for any opening comments she would like to make. Ms. Herrera Butler.
Thank you, Mr. Let's see, can you hear me? Yes.
Yes.
Thank you, Chairman Ryan. I'm really happy to begin the fiscal 2020 budget hearing process for the Ledge Branch agencies, and due obviously to the ongoing pandemic, all 10 of our budget hearings are going to be virtual this year, which is unfortunate, but that's what we're dealing with. I'm really looking forward to working with you, Chairman Ryan, to put together a bill that includes member priorities while exercising the fiscal restraint that we can, and that also means we're going to get this job done. Miss Sargis, it's really good to see you again. Now I'm gonna screw up and say the old name that's supposed to be the new name. So please excuse me. But the Open World Leadership Center has requested $6 million for fiscal 2020, the same as the fiscal 2021 enacted amount. So the center provides the opportunity for Congress to foster diplomatic relationships with leaders throughout Eurasia and Europe. And in a typical year, the center will be conducting several exchange programs, bringing leaders to the United States to engage and interact with members in their districts in person. Obviously, the COVID pandemic has forced a bit of a change, but it's not a permanent one. And despite the pandemic, the center has successfully adjusted its operations to allow foreign leaders to connect virtually with members and their staff. In fact, a delegation of National Park and National Reserve officials were obviously supposed to visit my neck of the woods to experience the natural beauty of Southwest Washington, and it is unparalleled. But obviously, this has been a year of curveballs. I'd like to note that the center's board of trustees have chosen the name of the Open World, to change it from, as Chairman Ryan said, the Open World Leadership Center to the Congressional Office of International Leaderships. I don't. You're not going to call it COIL, right? I'll get good at that. To better reflect the mission and congressional affiliation of the agency. The new name solidifies the vision. I think it is really an appropriate name among members of Congress, and clearly represents what your mission accomplishes. Finally, I'm pleased to see that the center has already hired a grant writer. Woo! We've talked about that a few times in the past. To help the agency secure non-appropriated funds for its mission. So with that, I look forward to hearing more about the agency and what you're doing and how you're going to continue to adapt and grow. And I yield back. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Is here, or Ranking Member Granger, is that correct?
They are not present, sir.
All right, thank you. So without objection, Ms. Sargis, your written testimony will be made part of the record. Please summarize your statement for the members of the committee. Once you have finished your statement, we will move to the question and answer period. Please begin.
Thank you. Chairman Ryan, Ranking Member Herrera Butler, and distinguished members of the subcommittee. Thank you for the opportunity to testify on the Open World Leadership Center's fiscal year 2022 budget. The budget request, as you say, is for level funding in 2022 that will continue to provide support for operating expenses of the center. There is an additional item of note in the budget. As you say, the Board of Trustees did vote to change the name of the center to the Congressional Office for International Leadership, a name that more accurately reflects the mission and congressional affiliation of the agency. As a unique congressional center and resource, Open World is the dynamic catalyst for hundreds of international projects and partnerships that constituents have developed with emerging leaders throughout the countries of Eurasia and Europe. More than 8,000 volunteer American families in all 50 states have hosted more than 29,000 young professionals. Our dedicated hosts immerse these professionals in American life, values, and practices, while contributing an estimated $1.5 to $2 million in cost shares and in-kind contributions annually. Americans from all walks of life have had to adjust the way they conduct business because of the global pandemic. The center began by asking the question, how does an exchange program reinvent itself in the time of COVID when there is no international travel? The program came to a complete halt and sent us all home on March 18, 2020. However, the challenges brought on by the pandemic created opportunities to bring delegates into the homes of Americans across the country virtually. As we settled into teleworking, the staff rallied to create a vibrant and extensive virtual Open World program. Using Zoom because of its unique ability to accommodate simultaneous interpretation, each teledelegation was introduced to their future program organizers and the local families that would host them. in less than a year, staff designed, developed, and implemented more than 120 virtual programs with nearly 8,000 people participating from all open world countries. This programming engaged members of Congress and their staff, as well as hundreds of American host families and program speakers and presenters. Unexpected benefits emerged from our virtual programming as our efforts to utilize teleconferencing revealed the strength of the relationships Open World has helped to form. From every country, every region, every walk of life, our alumni from all Open World countries joined in virtual reunions. The impact of congressional participation in all these virtual events was significant and memorable, especially for the many American hosts who joined in. Constituents throughout the country are proud to be a part of the Open World brand of citizen diplomacy. They know that they are building bridges between Main Street America and countries in transition. In fiscal year 2022, we plan to increase the number of visiting delegations substantially. New delegations will follow the pre-existing groups delayed by the pandemic. To the extent that circumstances permit, we plan to increase the depth and breadth of our programs, including pilot programs in Poland, Hungary, Romania, and Bulgaria. And finally, in our efforts to stay up to date technologically, the Center embarked on a project that involves the digitization of our records. A digital archive will allow the Center to demonstrate its effectiveness and tell its success story. With advanced analytics, the Center will leverage data to make a more modern and effective agency. The archive will not only showcase this unique example of cooperation between the Congress, that branch of government closest to its citizens, and the countless American communities that have partnered with the Center, but also to document the Center's nimble peer-to-peer approach to exchanges. Thank you for this opportunity to testify before you today. Your interest in and support of the Open World Leadership Center is paramount for our continued success.
Thank you, Ms. Sargis. We appreciate it. I always get excited hearing about the programs and all the great work you're doing. And, you know, given everything that's happened in the country and the world in the last year plus, these kind of programs and relationships are really essential. So thank you for that. We're going to go to question and answer, and I'm going to yield to my distinguished ranking member, Ms. Herrera Butler, for the first questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I am interested, Ms. Sargis, to hear about the grant writer and how that's starting and what you see happening. But I also kind of wanted to understand a little bit better how in the world you adapted an exchange program in the middle of a pandemic. I can't believe it's been a year that we've all been kind of fighting through this. And I wanted to understand and what challenges that may have presented in garnering private support, because that's obviously something we've encouraged you in. Additionally, I'd love to hear about the kind of the changes in you were talking about the data. The only word that's coming to mind is archiving, but digital archives, in order to better share and expose. I mean, people from Southwest Washington don't always get to come to the Capitol and see and hear what's happening, but having access to that digitally is really important. So those are some of the things I'd like to hear about, and I'll turn it back over to you.
Question. We appreciated the language and have taken steps that I believe will please the subcommittee. Our legislation does permit us to receive extra budgetary resources. So we're doing this already with the funding we received from the Department of State for programs that we have deemed appropriate to undertake at their request. We recently hired a staff member who is investigating what grant money is available to us, and will explore, when the pandemic is over, in a more open fashion, ways to make those connections. The pandemic did set us back a bit on that effort. but we are drafting a strategic plan for fundraising and development, as well as a strategic plan for the future of the center. The pandemic's impact on our program was fairly obvious, and we tried very hard to adapt quickly, but it took us a few weeks to figure out what the hurdles were, and we like to call them challenges, not problems. And the staff figured out that the virtual platform was the only way to go, and we did that by immediately setting up teledelegations, such as they are, with the ability to meet their future hosts and perhaps become engaged with some of the presenters. We invite the relevant member of Congress to participate, or a staff member often will participate in these teledelegations, and it's a very meaningful experience for the delegates. We also tried to enhance and grow our alumni program. And that is where the Zoom platform worked really well. And we've been able to engage so many of our alumni in all of our countries. In fact, it has gotten to the point where our alumni are asking us for engagement. So our staff has been very, very busy working on that and keeping up with that, and hoping that they can grow that engagement. The interest in follow-up is very strong. And when our alumni are meeting again with their host families, it's like a family reunion. It's very warm. And I wish you could see how happy they are to see each other again. And many of our delegates refer to their American hosts as their American parents. It is that kind of relationship. It's very, very, very well received, and very many people are happy to have that opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Great, thank you. Mr. Case.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Ms. Sargis. Let me talk to you about the Indo-Pacific. You've been so successful in kind of looking to the east of where we are today, and your mission statement does include Asia, but the Asia that you really encompass today is really those countries that Chair Ryan mispronounced. Didn't really include Northeast Asia or Southeast Asia, or you know, the countries of the Indo-Pacific. I think we talked about this in some prior hearings about some further extension of your success to the Indo-Pacific, the broad Indo-Pacific. I think the other half of the world deserves that attention as well. So I know that in the FY21 approach bill, we did include language really discussing an orientation towards Australia as just kind of a foothold, perhaps in that area, including the potential of a reverse exchange program. I certainly would like to see that extended to other critical countries where we might have the same aims and have the same effect. Some of the ones that would occur to me would be India, the Philippines, Malaysia, some other countries that certainly we could stand some strengthening of ties with, and in the spirit of what you have pursued for over 2 decades. Do you have thoughts on whether that's on your agenda, and do the resources that you have permit you to do that?
Thank you for that question. Thank you for that question. The center considers new countries by a process, and the process is that the Board of Trustees, which is made up of members of Congress and other ex officio members, and the board has to consider the capacity and the resources available to the center in order to approve the additional countries. So we prefer to receive requests that are bipartisan and bicameral if possible, because the board then considers that an interest from Congress that permeates both sides. And that's an important part of their ability to consider any new country. Australia came up last year because of request in the Senate side, but it was not a bipartisan request. And it didn't exactly fill the needs of the board, who wanted to see a bipartisan request. Also, when we consider adding countries, we consider funding. And as it is, and we have some countries of Eastern Europe now in our wheelhouse, and we can do those countries, but in the course of a year, in a normal non-COVID year, we can bring 1,000 people. And in that planning, which we do many months out, there is a certain level of attrition. So when we get the attrition and we fall below the 1,000, we try to supplement it with pilot programs in the countries that we've been asked to do. So we manage to keep the numbers at around 1,000, but it's generally through the course of the year when we are able to accommodate additional requests in additional countries.
Okay, so I think what I'm hearing you saying is, in order to consider some of the countries in the Indo-Pacific, you would want a bipartisan, bicameral request to you, number one, and number two, you'd have to find some extra resources in the currently allocated resources to the current countries. Is that about right?
That is correct.
Okay, and then just specifically as to Australia, since that seems to be where you're farther along, is that now one of your countries, or you're still taking a look at it? And what about the possibility of the reverse exchange program?
That's a good question. The Australia case has been tabled for now, but we are developing an idea for a reverse program. A reverse program would cement relationships between the professionals in the United States who are meeting with their peers from open world countries. We are drafting also a whole program outline for that. I'd be happy to share that with you when we finish. And there are lots of things to consider with a reverse program. And I would say the most important one to consider is, how are individuals from the United States nominated to travel? It's tricky. And Open World does not want to be a travel agency, so we don't want necessarily to be a part of the logistical effort, but we're exploring some options about that, because we feel it's important that we manage the outcomes and not so much the process and logistics of bringing and taking people abroad.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Mr. Amadei. Mark. All right, Mr. Newhouse.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning. Ms. Vargas, appreciate you being with us this morning. Thank you for taking time to share with us your plans for the coming year. Let me, first of all, compliment you for not asking for an increase in your appropriation. Right? That's, we've gone through a difficult year as a country, obviously, and a lot of unanticipated challenges. And I just wanted to say it's not gone unnoticed that you're managing and being able to do so with the same level, budget level. And just to expand on that a little bit, could you share with us the process that you went through? I'm not sure whether to call you Open World or the center yet, but could you share with us how the process you went through to reprogram funds for from the way you used to do things to how you do them now? Could you enlighten us on that?
Sure. In a typical year, we provide grants to a number of independent NGOs around the country, and the grants are the mechanism by which delegates are brought to the US and the programs are written for them or set up for them. Under COVID, of course, without travel, we had to think about how to implement the program within the parameters of the existing grant amount. And we encouraged our grantees to come to us and offer suggestions and proposals for engaging with delegations. And it was a remarkable response from all the grantees. It got to the point where the local hosting organizations were also very, very interested in participating in the Open World program. So we had a number of requests just for the alumni to meet with their host families, but we decided that we wanted to have professional programs, not just reunions. So we engaged the former speakers and presenters, and with the help of our logistical contractor, we were able to manage this on a Zoom platform. We have a Zoom for government, and we're able to do multilingual programs now. And in fact, we had one this last week that had 4 languages. So Zoom creates an interpretation channel, which is really important. So we provide full interpretation and all kinds of other support for these teledelegations. We participate in them. I greet every group and let them know how much we appreciate their participation and their coming back to join us. And we get a lot of questions about when can we come? When is travel going to resume? Nobody knows that. My challenge is not only will we start implementing programs again when international travel starts, but understanding that many of our host families are empty nesters. There will be a bit of a reluctance to host again for a while. So we are watching all the moving parts carefully, and we hope to have programs resume certainly by next January, but possibly in the fall. It just depends on the vaccination program and all kinds of things going on. But we hope very much to have groups on the ground again in the fall, late fall, maybe October.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, with new challenges come new opportunities sometimes. So
well, exactly.
So you've had operations in my district in Washington State, and but frankly, not unlike a lot of rural areas in the country, some of my constituents lack adequate broadband to conduct video calls. Have you had any issues with people who want to participate but just have had difficulty because they don't have a good connectivity? Or how do you deal with that?
We do have that problem, especially when we're talking about Russian participants from the Far East, for example. I mean, there are some connectivity issues. People will fade in and out occasionally, but generally, the people that choose to participate have managed to overcome those hurdles. Generally, we don't have many dropped participants. And because we have the account that we have, we're able to accommodate large alumni gatherings, and we do multi-country ones, which are very interesting, especially if we decide to use a theme like conservation or national parks, and we'll bring alumni from several countries who traveled on that theme to discuss it together, and they are beginning to form their own network in Eurasia of open world participants who come from different countries. That's another unexpected benefit of these Zoom calls. We can invite anybody and everybody.
I'm guessing some of these new ways of doing things may become more permanent, but my time is out, but I do appreciate you being here this morning. And thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks for that.
Thanks, Mr. Newhouse. Always thoughtful questions. Ms. Wexton.
There you go.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Ms. Sargis, for joining us this morning. So I also serve on the State and Foreign Ops Subcommittee, And so we hear a lot about the executive branch democracy building program. So it's good to hear we have some within the legislative branch as well. And it sounds like you guys were able to transition to a virtual program pretty seamlessly and well. But how are you measuring success metrics with a virtual curriculum?
That is being developed as we speak, because not having any past experience with measuring a virtual program, I would say that one of the main things is we're able to learn more about what people are doing as a result of their open world experience. Somebody would open up a shelter for abused women, victims of domestic violence. That might be a result that we consider very important. Another will hold a conference on forest management or conservation or something like that. And we hear about them, especially during COVID, because we have so many interactions with our alumni now in person, virtually, that we learn quite a bit about what they're doing and what they're up to. And they are committed, very committed. I mean, we even had a Russian delegate who traveled outside her village to a library to have access to internet. That was how strong the interest in staying in touch is. It's very important that the network of alumni that we have in Russia alone, we have more than 20,000 alum. It's important that we stay in touch with them and they tell us what is going on. It's been very, very refreshing.
So that actually segues nicely into my next question, which is what happens when a participant finishes a program? Like, how do you develop your alumni programs and how do you find alumni to help with those?
Well, we have in our logistical contractor the ability to conduct alumni programs. We work with the embassies in our countries, our American embassies in our countries, and they often will host an alumni event where people will gather at the ambassador's residence. It's a very nice way for the group to see each other again and also to meet new participants on the program. And that network will continue once the pandemic is over, but we're going to continue with the alumni virtual program because the outreach capacity on the virtual platform is phenomenal, and we will continue to use that.
And one of the things I was pleased to see was that my hometown of Leesburg, Virginia is a host city or host town.
Yes,
And
it's a host city.
And I was kind of surprised actually because it's a little town, but it was very nice to see. So how do you ensure a diversity of participating towns and localities?
Well, the grantees themselves, there are two ways. The grantees themselves have a network of hosting clubs around the country. For example, Rotary International was one of our grantees, and of course, they have Rotary clubs in every state. But there are also sister city relationships that want to host, and Friendship Force, which is another service club of sorts. So we rely on them to expand the network and change up sometimes, but it's a matter of capacity for some of the local hosting organizations, but we're able to host in all 50 states. Maybe not every single year, but almost every year we have 47, 48 to 50 states.
A mixture of urban and suburban and rural as well.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay,
one of the favorite spots in the United States is Big Canoe, Georgia. Go figure. But it's a very popular destination for our delegates.
Great. And then my final question is, I saw that you have some pilot programs slated for 21-22 in Bulgaria, Hungary, Poland, and Romania. Can you talk a little bit about those, what the pilot programs are going to be?
Well, I believe that in Poland and Hungary, the focus will be on civil society or perhaps local legislators like mayors or council members. And in Bulgaria and Romania, it will be a rule of law program.
Very good. Thank you so much. I see my time's up, so I will yield back. Thanks for all you're doing.
Thanks, Ms. Wexton. Mr. Amadei? Yeah. Mark, you're up. Mr. Amadei?
Hey, Mr. Chairman, thank you. Sorry you had to double clutch on that. I think that you're doing such a great job that I'm going to yield back my time in the interest of moving right along. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Amadei. Ms. Clark?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Director Sargis, for joining us today. I am so impressed with your transition to virtual programming. And I wonder if you have thought about when it is safe for international travel again, are you going to incorporate the virtual programming into your ongoing programming?
Great question. We talk about this quite a bit, and we plan to definitely keep the virtual platform as part of our program. In our countries, the normal procedure has been to have a pre-departure orientation. The delegates arrive at the U.S. Embassy in order to receive their visas, and then our people organize an orientation for them to explain to them what is going to happen, how this will be, and where you will go and what you will do. We've decided to use the virtual platform so that pre-departure orientation will include the host families and the local organizing host. That way, people will be meeting who they're staying with, and there will be perhaps a settling down of nerves when they know that who they're meeting and who they're staying with. And the virtual platform will not disappear from Open World. It's been a real boon to making and keeping connections.
That's what you're all about.
Exactly.
Are there any other challenges that you have had arise during the pandemic that we should be aware of on the Ledge Branch Committee or can assist with?
Thank you for that question. I believe that we worked out most of the hurdles. We think we have all our bases covered at this point. We don't have too much left to explore, except how do we resume a normal program again. So at this point, we feel very confident in implementing our virtual program. But as we segue into real travel again, there will be parts of what we're doing now that will remain part of the future programs and the delegations. In fact, we plan to not double, but maybe 1.5 times the number of people we normally bring. We're thinking 1,400 to 1,600 people in the 12 months of travel as soon as it is resumed. And that's to make up a little bit for the lost time of travel. And by the time we shut down last year, we had brought 166 people, and we had 1,020 on our agenda. So we have a lot of backup to stuff in arrears we need to work on. And some people will not be able to travel anymore, but others will. So we're going to work it out. I talked to the staff, the program staff in particular, and they're very confident they could manage 1,500 in a 12-month period.
That's great. I was also pleased to see that one of the national grantees is a sister city association with Cambridge in my district and Armenia's capital city. Many Armenian Americans have expressed concern about Azerbaijan's military actions against Armenians in Artsakh last year. Have these recent hostilities between two open world countries have an impact on your programming And how do you address these situations where there are geopolitical considerations between participating countries?
Well, that's a great question. And considering that there is always that tension between Russia and Ukraine and also Georgia, this is not a new thing for us. But we address each country uniquely, and we intend to make available to them the ability and the opportunity to talk about what concerns them. And if they want to talk about, if an Armenian delegation wants to talk about Azerbaijan, we're able to do that. And we allow those conversations to take place, because one of the things that happens when our delegations meet with members is those are the concerns they bring up. Those are the things they tell you about. Those are the things they want help with. And it's important that we still do virtual programs with both countries, no problem, but we certainly don't have them traveling at the same time, obviously. We wouldn't be in the future, so.
Thank you so much. I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ms. Clark. Ms. Sargis, thank you so much. You're always so impressive, and we love having you for the committee every year, and especially thankful for your ability to navigate the tumultuous waters of 2020 and now 2021. As you mentioned to Ms. Herrera Butler's question with regard to the grant writer, we're sorry you had a little bit of a setback here, and obviously no fault of your own. But we just want to continue to encourage you to pursue that. We think that you make such a compelling case, especially in the world we're living in, that I think there's going to be ample resources out there for you once you are able to, articulate and tell the story to those other NGOs and foundations. And of course, we think expanding this program is in the best interest of the country. And we think we could, maybe do that with some private funds. So we're very, very thankful for you continuing to do that. Ms. Clark stole my question about the virtual. I figured you had some plans to keep and amplify the virtual opportunities that you discovered this year, which I think is says a lot about your organization. We see it in telehealth and telework and telemedicine and teleeducation and everything else, that everybody's saying, okay, maybe we don't want to do this all the time, but there are some opportunities here, for us to take advantage of. And I think that speaks to your leadership in being so adaptable. I just have a couple of quick questions. The expansion into Hungary, which I find very interesting. I just want to know what kind of reception you're talking about. Poland and Hungary. In Hungary, it's obviously a very complicated political situation there. I'm just interested in the response you're getting there and how the rollout is happening there.
That's a great question. We start on a pilot program. We start with working with our embassy partners in that country, because they know what and who and how to form a program with a delegation that would be able to travel. It is tricky sometimes. And we work very closely with them because we don't want to upset their apple cart, but we need to do an open world program that in fact still represents what we consider our core values. It'll be homestays, it'll be looking at rule of law or the legislative process, which is something that we talk about quite a bit with every delegation. Understanding how laws are made is part of what we're doing. So we are working with the embassy personnel, the public affairs and political officers usually in the embassy of Poland to help us, or Hungary, to help us craft that program. It is tricky. But we plan to have a virtual program as soon as travel resumes. and a regular program. We're gonna try, and I think we'll be successful.
Great. Final question. We know you were talking about another full-time employee in the request. Can you just tell us what that full-time employee's responsibilities will be?
Yes, that person is, well, nobody in open world wears one hat. So not only will he be tasked with proposal writing and pursuing grant opportunities, but he'll also be part of our strategic planning initiative and part of our congressional relations, which we consider to be very important. So
Great.
so I'm still the budget officer, but I'm also the director. So everybody has to wear more than one hat. That's why we're so good with money. We make everybody do many things.
Yeah, that's great. Well, we can't thank you enough. We appreciate your time. Keep up the great work. We'll continue to work with you. And if there's something you may need along the way, we're here to help.
That's great to hear. Thank you so much. I want to give a shout out to my outstanding staff. They are simply the best. I don't think we could have done this year without their wits coming to the table with good ideas and the ability to implement like that. They did a great job, and I don't think I could ever express my appreciation enough. And also, I want to say hi to all my relatives in Ohio and West Virginia who are watching today, and let them know I appreciate that too. So.
All right. Where in Ohio are they?
Belmont County, and also in the Columbus area, and Akron and Canton. I actually have family in a lot of different places in Ohio. Groveport, Bel Air, which is where I'm from. So the eastern part mostly.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Well, we can't thank you enough. Thank your staff. And with that, this committee, thank all the members of the committee for great questions. Committee is adjourned.
Thank you.